is going to... Okay. So, hello everybody. It's a great pleasure to have you all. It's an amazing pleasure as well to have Brice David with us. He's going to talk about, Brice David is here. He's going to talk about the first visit and to answer to some questions. I hope you have some because I have many as well. It's going to be a great time altogether because Brice is having a huge experience and a huge knowledge, so it's going to be a really great, funny time, I hope. So, Brice, how are you?
Let's have some fun. First of all, I would like to have a thought for a friend of mine and someone you know very well. It's Jean-Paul Pianta. And I was with Jean-Pierre Meersseman yesterday night, and he told me that Jean-Paul is a very critical state of health, and he's under morphine. They don't do any care anymore, and we're expecting that he may pass away within a few days. So I know that Jean-Paul has done a lot of things for you all students. He went to the Chiropractic College in Paris. He was on the video for you at the BCC about a month ago, and he did a very beautiful lecture. He is a very enthusiastic personality of the chiropractic profession here in Europe, and it's a very sad news. And we're all affected by this very terrible news. So this is life. We all have to end up somewhere and somehow, and let's hope it's going to be the latest possible, and we're going to have more fun as possible, so we can enjoy life. So tonight, we will try to speak about the first visit and the priority system, which should ease the way you practice in your office. Why did we created a protocol of first visit and of priority system? It's all because we have known many things, and we took many seminars, Jean-Pierre, Piet, and I. And when Piet and I started working on our own, we were taking seminars and studying and reading books, and all of a sudden we realized that all those techniques had to do something, but we had to understand when to use it. So we sat and we found a protocol that allows the practitioner to communicate with the body and receive from the body the information that's going to help to work with the patient. So first of all, I would like to say that any patient who comes to you is referring a condition, is referring a diagnosis, is referring a disease between brackets. And the first mistake you may do is try to deal and treat the condition, or treat the disease, or treat the symptoms, or get rid of the diagnosis. You can get rid of the diagnosis. It's a very simple thing. If the patient has diabetes, you can write diabetes on the paper, and you're going to get rid of the doubles. Okay, so if you take diabetes, you're going to get rid of the E's, and so you're going to have diabetes. And so you can build up a new word with this, and you can tell your patient, this is what you have. And that makes a unique morphic field for the patient. So it's breaking the pattern, and it's breaking the attitude of the patient towards the condition he has. like if the one is coming with the prostate cancer, take the word, get rid of all the double letters, and write down the new word. So you will be the only one in this world to get the problem. So you won't be able to go to YouTube or to Google or whatever, try to get all the information, because when a patient gets a diagnosis, the first thing he does, he goes to Google, he goes to whatever he finds, and he's going to get into the morphic field of that condition or the disease. He's going to read about all the symptoms, the prognosis, and he's going to buy it. This is what Viktor Frankl used to call the buy-in technique. You're lost, you don't have the knowledge, you get into the book, you get the information, and the information is general. It's not specific for you, it's specific for everybody. So it can be yours. But the problem is that they get into the morphic field of the disease, and it gets into their subconscious, and their subconscious is leading their physiology, their attitude, and their way of looking at things. And they will end up pretty bad because they will follow unconsciously the prognosis, and they will end up bad. So the first thing you have to do is get rid of this naming of the diagnosis or the condition. Now, even for yourself, because as I said, you cannot work with the condition. As a chiropractor, we work with innate intelligence, we work with universal intelligence. So the body is an illusion, in the sense that if you go down deep into the anatomy, you will go down to the cells, and you will go down to the level of the particles that are creating the cells. But if you go even deeper than that, you will reach a point of nothing. It's a void at 99.9%. But the frequency the human body is vibrating makes it solid. And the universal consciousness and the memory of the human being makes the body as it is. So you're looking at a body that is solid, which is an illusion. The body is not. The body is made of electrons, of biophotons, and between those electrons, you got a void at 99.9%. So we can say that the body is made of light, which is the biophotons, and information through the DNA and the electrons. And those photons, biophotons, and electrons are the same that are in the field that are around you, and in the nature, and in the plants, and in the trees, and in the sea, and in the universe. So we are part of it, and we belong to it, and the whole thing belongs to us. So when you name a condition and you want to treat a condition, you go into your left brain. And so you limit yourself because you go back into the box. And when you're in the box, your ego is speaking, and you're afraid of not making it, of not fixing the patient. But if you look at the thing as an information and as patterns that are creating a condition in the physiology, then all you have to do is find the interferences within the body, within the frame of the body, and in the field of the body. And then that's a whole different conversation, because then you're talking to the field, you're talking to innate intelligence, and that innate intelligence will give you what to do, where to go, and how to do it. So to go, where to go, and how to do it, you need to study and get different techniques in order to fulfill what the body needs. But at the same time, the field is so intelligent that you're going to go and you're going to have patients that are at the level of your knowledge. So you always be successful. And the more you learn, the more you practice, the more you will attract cases that are weirder and weirder and weirder, so you can have more fun doing it. Because the first thing you have to do is have fun doing it, enjoying doing it, and probably be mindless in the sense that you're not using your left brain, but you're going to use your left brain, your right brain, and you're going to use your heart space to connect to the field and to be in connection with the patients. What is happening when we do a protocol of priority? We are, it's just like when you're in the car and you want to go to a destination and you don't know how to get there. So you got a GPS on the car. So you put the address on it and the GPS is going to tell you where to go and where to turn, and that's it till you arrive. That's the same thing when we deal with the priority system and the first visit protocol. We can split the things in the first visit protocol and the priority system, so you can figure it out easily. Now, do you have any questions so far? Not so far. Okay. Now, when you're dealing with a patient for the first time, this is what Sheldon Deal is saying, and I think it's a very, very intelligent thing. He said you have to look at the memory of the trauma that the body has had in the past. By that, he means sprained ankles. You have to learn the technique of injury recall technique in applied kinesiology, or Sheldon Deal. You can look at the video on YouTube of Sheldon Deal and the IRT, injury recall technique. And he's dealing mainly with three things. The first one is the sprained ankle, because you're going to walk on your feet. And if the sprained ankle does not have a perfect dynamics within the walking, then it's going to transmit the wrong information to the hip and then to the lumbar. And from the lumbar goes up to your TMJ or to the cranium. Now, the second one is when he's asking about people who got devitalization of teeth. And it's very important because it's going to change the result. For one good reason is that when the tooth is devitalized, the field of the tooth which corresponds to some muscle specifically will be canceled. So you may have a weakness of a muscle because of a devitalized tooth, and that you cannot fix the guy if you don't get rid of the memory of the injury that was made also during a devitalization. Plus, devitalization, it's a very complicated thing because very often it is not totally devitalized, or it remains some bacteria at the bottom where they've been working. The third one is for women, is the mammography. The mammography is like squeezing the breast of a woman just like a hamburger. It's an injury, it's an aggression, and it's creating a memory in the breast, and this breast can have some signals to the muscles that are around the breast, like the pectoralis major sternal, like the pectoralis major clavicular, or even the pectoralis minor, okay? plus all the reflexes from the breast to the intercostal muscles. Now look for the surgeries as well that the patient has had and deal with the surgery in IRT. And also, by surgery, I mean the scars. And I also mean when they put a hip, a prosthesis, or when they remove an organ. You have to deal with those things before anything you do to the patient. That's the most important thing at the very beginning of the first visit. Now you have different things. When you deal with the first visit, you can have a plumb line if you're doing SOT or applied kinesiology to find out about the category, but it's going to give you a structural thing. Even though we can speak about category 1 and category 2 and the way it is, I can, category 1 and category 2 are most probably in appearance structural, but they're physiological. And they're enhancing physiological processes in your body that I can explain that in 2 minutes later on, or if you have a question about that. Now, my way of starting my first visit beside the IRT is to have the patient in the standing position. And if you look in George Goodheart notes about the dural torque and the way he was testing the dural torque, you put the patient in the gait position, like the left leg in front and the right arm forward. When you put your right arm forward, for the pectoralis to work, it takes the extensors to release, and they have to shut down. If not, your arm is not going forward. And the most important one is the Latissimus Dorsi. So in the standing position where the patient is in the forward gait with the left leg forward, you test the Latissimus Dorsi. If there is no dural tension, the Latissimus Dorsi is weakening and you can bring the arm forward easily. But if it stays there, it means the body is not in phase of walking and on deambulation. And there's a bug in that mechanism. So you're going to find, and you're going to have different points. You're going to have to understand where is the bug? Where is the main interference? This is where you're going to start. This is why I go back to the first thing that I said. Do not give importance to the diagnosis. Do not give credit to the name of the condition, because you will have people with a left shoulder problem, and it's not a shoulder problem. It may be a meridian problem, it may be a liver problem, it may be a lung problem, it may be a stomach problem, it may be a heart problem. So you have to find out. The left shoulder is what the patient is telling you. What it is important is what the body is going to tell you what to do and where to do and how to do it. So at the end, the patient will be satisfied because his left shoulder will be fine. But you don't give a shit about the diagnosis, okay? Unless there is a malformation that you have to take care of it and you have to take note of it, or there is a pathology like metastases in different bones, then you have to take note of it. But that doesn't make any difference for your work. You're going to still have to deal with the patient, whether or not the patient has metastasis, because the body will tell you what to do. So the level of energy of the body will go up and will be able to defend itself against the disease, against the condition. So you have to, I noticed over the years that most of the time, even the patient is coming for a disc problem, or even if it's coming for a low back problem or migraine headaches or whatever it is, 90% of the time that we do the test of the gait, the priority will be either immune or chemistry or emotional. 10% will be something at the level of the structural thing. If you find a structural thing, you have to check, first of all, the occlusion of the patient. If he's lacking teeth, if he has a prosthesis, a denture, which is too low or too high or moving and stable, if he has a wisdom tooth that is included, which is creating the weakness of your psoas muscle, if the patient is chewing on one side only, which is creating tension of the pterygoid external on the other side, and of the buccinator and masseter on the same side, which is changing the whole thing, because if you got a pterygoid external on the left side that is too tight, it has the same innervation as the upper trapezius. So you will get a tense upper trapezius. And so your shoulder will be high and your head tilt will be towards the shoulder. And you can move that, it's not gonna work because the problem is here, okay? So now you have to check the occlusion. You have to check if the patient, you already done anyway, the memory in the ankles and all the things and the surgeries, the scars and everything. Ask the patient if he's wearing some planters, some soles to correct the foot, and check it, and check the patient with and without, because it may be different. Very often the patient will feel better without, because very often those planters are not well done. Just like the bites they have in the mouth, 90% of the time they're not good, and they're creating more problem than anything else. And this is why for everything that is on the occlusion, I think the best seminar absolutely is the one given by Jean-Pierre Meersseman. If you can have the opportunity to follow Jean-Pierre on the seminar on the occlusion, it's worth it. I've been learning a lot with them when we were practicing together, and it's fantastic. So he gave a seminar some 3-4 months ago with Bruno Rubino. Excellent. That was really excellent. So check the planters, check the occlusion, and check the glasses if they wear glasses.
Brice, so yeah. Can I ask you something quickly about the planters? When you said check them, checking during the gait, right? With and without on the gait position? Absolutely.
You can do that. Or you can do in a more simple way. You put the planters on the chest and you test the muscle. If they're not good, it's everything. The body has this intelligence. Believe in it. Be conscious of the intelligence of the body. If you put something that is wrong to the body in the field of the body will weaken, whatever it is. Okay. So if the planters are not good, not proper for the patient, you put them here, you test, and they're weak.
You don't need a magnet to put it on it.
Why should you?
Well, in AK, they learn us to put a magnet to.
Yeah, they like to call things in AK, but the body nature is so simple. Okay, Do not, the moment you complicate things, you get into your left brain. When you get into your left brain, you get into a system. And when you get into a system, you're fucked up.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? We have taken so many seminars and so many techniques that I can tell you a thing. If you remain in one technique, you'll get lost. You have to take all the seminars you want to take, learn all the techniques you want to learn, and then do your own recipe, which fits to you. But always be conscious that, how can I say that? Every technique, okay, is A to B to C to D. It's linear. And being linear, it's on the wrong way. Because the body knows. You're going to do technique once, two, twice, three times, four times. On the fifth time, he's going to say, I know the story. And he's not going to answer. You have to, I have to explain first something maybe. The body, as I said, is light and information. The body is holographic in nature. Okay? And when we are dealing with stressful situation, and this is what we're dealing lately for the last 16 months, okay? But everybody is having stressing condition in his life on a daily basis, okay? Work, family, money, whatever it is, okay? You put yourself into a physiology of defense, of survival.
Brice, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Can I ask a question? When you find, due to stress, many hypertonic muscles, what do you do? Because I'm lost.
Okay, when you got hypertonic muscle, the first thing you have to check is water. Okay? And then
Okay, thank you.
what you can do is do the arm test. You do 2 fists like this, clench your teeth, and test the muscles. And if it's weakening, you know the guy is stressed. If you have hypertonicity, you have one point right here on the right side, right at the K27. Okay? Have the patient touch the K27, test the muscle, and it's weakening. Okay? Or what you can do, you can test the hypertonic muscle. It is strong. You work on the fibers, has to weaken the muscle, test it, and it's still strong. So what you do, place the finger right here, go into the fibers to weaken the muscle, test it, and will weaken. That's the way to be sure that this is a hypertonicity and the K27 is involved. But it is more important to find out why the body is hypertonic. The hypertonicity mainly is chemical or emotional, but mainly chemical. The first thing is lack of water. That's the first thing. Emotional, it has to take a lot of stress to arrive to hypertonicity. Okay. I would go more for the chemical thing. And the first thing is, or it may be a toxic liver or toxic kidneys. Filters of the body can create hypertonicity. Do you understand what I'm saying? Federico? I think Federico is lost on the train.
Can I quickly come back on what you were saying, Brice, about learning as many techniques as we want? What would be for you an advice about how to learn them and integrate them? Because at some point it can be really overwhelming, right? There is so many techniques. So when you start on practice, you can learn many things, but what I'm going to use today, you're not going to use everything. So a recommendation would be stick to one until you manage it properly and pass to another one, or try to understand directly the patterns. How would you learn many techniques at the same time?
You know, the problem is it's a different of generation, and I tell you why. Because we've been very lucky, because the techniques came one after another. So we had the time to fully study one technique, to arrive to a new one, to fully study it, and so on. You have the privilege to have all those techniques now, but you also the disadvantage, because it's coming from here, it goes here, but here it's small like this, and above it's very large. So you got the whole thing here, but the cipher here is small. So I believe that still you have to learn every technique and know every technique well. Why? Because once you've learned every technique you want to learn and you know them well, then you can do your own recipe. But if you pick up something here, something there, it's what they say in France. It's a touche à tout et bon à rien. Okay, it's exactly that. Okay, you have to understand every technique has one thing, has a master, the guy who created it. You have to read about the guy. You have to understand what was animating this guy to do this technique. George Goodheart, Carl Ferreri, Best, Ted Morter, Gunstead. Why Gunstead was adjusting this way? You know why? Because he got arthritis. He got rheumatoid arthritis. He was not able to do anything else than having this here and bring it here. So he developed a technique on his own, and the most specifically he could. And that was very good. That's excellent procedure. But he did it because his hands were like this. Victor Frank created TBM. Why? Because his wife was sick after the birth of his first child. And she was diagnosed as leukemia, and she was about to die. And so he studied and he meditated and he met the right people that taught him how to work, and he created TBM. And he saved his wife. She didn't have leukemia. She had a problem with the medicine she was taking during pregnancy and right after pregnancy. She was allergic to it. So you have to understand what motivated those guys to create the technique. George Goodheart creating applied kinesiology because his father was a chiropractor and a very successful chiropractor in Detroit. And George, after the Second World War, came back and he had to work. But he got his father that was so good and so well known. So he studied, and he wanted to do something different. And he did something wonderful, which is called applied kinesiology. The applied kinesiology that was created and developed by George Goodheart. And I believe that today, I'm not going to be very nice to some of my colleagues, but the only one that is really teaching the applied kinesiology as George has created it is David Leaf. David Leaf is giving really the heritage that he received from George. Not only the technique, the spirit of the technique. You have to understand the spirit of the technique. If the technique is a technique, you have to put the music in the technique, which is the spirit that is animating the technique. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
And the most important thing, one more thing, never try to work as someone else, because you won't be yourself. You won't be honest with yourself, and you won't be honest with your patients. One thing is, you have to dare to be yourself and to do what you feel to do and to be. Then, subconsciously and unconsciously, you will transfer that to your patient. They will trust in you. But if you try to pretend, the unconscious of the patient will say, not that guy, don't like him. No. But if you dare being yourself, if you dare doing something different than the others because you feel like it's yours and you're good at it and you feel it, it's in your blood, in your cells, go for it. You know, I'd rather see a guy who does only toggle recall but believes in it so much that he's going to, in every toggle recall he's going to give all his love and energy and faith. And the patient will receive it. He will attract the type of patient who needs a toggle recoil, but he'll be happy. Gaston Gros in Paris, back in the 50s, he was seeing 150 patients a day. He would go to New York, take the boat to go to New York with a portable table, give his business cards on the very first day, and he would be full on the 6th day of navigation. And he would pay all his trip. He would see 50 patients. And you know what he was doing? He got a neurocalorimeter, okay? And the neurocalorimeter was a probe, only one, that you put on the atlas on the right, measure the temperature, and then you go to the left side and measure the temperature. But he was always starting with one side, so the probe would be warmer when he would go to the left side. So the temperature was always hot on the left side or right side, I don't remember which side. And suddenly he got his toggle table that was against the wall because he was adjusting the atlas on the same side for every patient, 150 patients a day. And you know what? He got wonderful results. The intent and the faith that he put into that made the difference. Okay? Any question?
So you were speaking that when you had structural issue, it's 10%, and you have to check the dental and the foot. For immune, chemistry, emotional, which is what comes more often?
Yes.
So,
if you're really dealing with the gait, this is where you're gonna find. Never forget. Okay. You have, as Viktor Frankl used to say, you cannot deal with a physiological or chemistry problem without checking water, protein, and sugar. Water, because your cells are and your body is 85% made of water. Sugar, because, well, if you look at, and we can go back to that, but if you look at the defense mechanism and survival mode of the body, survival mode of the body is protecting only 2 organs, not 3. Well, maybe 3. 2 organs are the heart and the brain. And both of them are working on glucose. The heart may work on fatty acids, but it works mainly on glucose. The heart goes to fatty acids when the brain is taking the glucose from the heart to really survive. So then you got a process between the liver, the gallbladder, fatty acids that goes to different cycles that you know much better than me because you're studying it. And I forgot a bit about that. So the sugar is very important because it's part of your nervous system. And it's part of your fight and flight. Okay. And then the protein. Well, it's building up your body. It's creating all the amino acids. It's creating everything. But it's part also, the liver and the protein is very important. And when you deal in TBM with sugar, you always deal with sugar first, hypo, hyper, hypocytic, but you always test right after the relationship between protein and liver or protein and gallbladder. You cannot go into the chemistry without dealing with those things first. Once you have checked those three things, then you may proceed to anything of allergy, of food intolerance. Food intolerance that you may find some people are doing their practice on food intolerance. It is absurd. Why? Because if you have a food intolerance, it is whether because you are eating too much of the same product and your body says, no, enough, I don't want it anymore. Like if you go to Italy, the southern Italy is very rich in tomatoes. And you'll find very often people in Italy that are intolerant to tomatoes. But if you go to northern Italy, they are big cheese eaters. And you will find many people intolerant to dairies. But this is because they're eating too much of it. Now, the second reason why you got food intolerance is stress. Because when you're in survival mode and your body is working on high sympathetic, your digestive tract is not working enough. So you will get a lack of enzyme from the pancreas. You will get a lack of enzyme from the small intestine. You understand what I'm saying? Any question?
Just for the stress when we are testing both arms,
Yeah.
we have to pop 3 times on the top of the head.
Once.
Only one
Yeah.
time.
Victor
Okay.
Frank, do 3 times. It was a way to enter the information. If you follow the class with Richard Bartlett, MED, which is absolutely a must, you tap it once as you enter the information and you test it again. If they're strong, that means the body has recognized that it is a phase of survival and it's going to deal with it on its own. But if you test a second time and it's weak, then you have to work on it.
Okay.
And then you can have also the stress situation on the GI tract, the stomach, masticating or sucking. When you find sucking, it is because you have a problem within the enzymes and the digestive tract from the very beginning, when you were sucking the breast of your mom. And then the third one is the reproductive system. Male, for instance, when they're stressed, it's not working very well. Okay. And this is what you will learn if you take MED. That's very interesting, and we can talk about it when we do the categories and understand that. Okay, because I think the most important thing is to deal with stressed people. And working on the emotional aspect doesn't help at all. Because the thought process is a physiology. Your thinking process creates a physiology. The physiology is registered in your body. And every time, just like in your linguistic program, you will get a manifestation of the same thing, or disguised, okay, with a sound, with an appearance, with a color, with a voice, or someone that looks like. You're going to wake up the physiology of stress. Okay, so unless you're really dealing with the emotional with 3 techniques, which is the tail wag in TBM, which is the invasion in TBM, and the psycho-energetic emotional, the P in matrix energetics, where you can get rid of an image, of a memory that is stored not in your brain. There's a physiologist in Holland 4 years ago who wrote a beautiful article saying that the memory is not at all in your brain. The memory is in your field. like a bookshelf. And you know, if you have your bookshelf with all your books to study, you need to have the ones of anatomy there and the one for physiology there and the pathophysiology there. If not, you get lost when you want to find something. This is exactly what's happening when you get a trauma, an emotional trauma, and an image that is frozen of that event, which is creating a memory. Then you have to move in the space, just like if you were moving your books, in order to change the memory. And then it's very amazing because with P, in 40 seconds, the patient doesn't remember, cannot see the image anymore. That's quite fascinating. And you can do it also for someone who has an addiction. Have him think of the addiction, then change, move in the field, the things. He doesn't feel like doing his addiction anymore. So that's quite interesting. But let's go back. You have another way of testing. Once you have tested in the gait, you can test the patient on the lying position with opposite limbs, inflection. So he's lifting his left arm, lifting his left leg, okay, but you have to test it separately before, find out if there is a shoulder problem or a hip problem. And then you test. If the patient is weak, you know it's a major thing. If the patient is strong, you know it's a minor thing, okay? Most of the time you do the dural gait, the dural tension on the first visit. Then at the end of the visit, you can test your dural gait if it's go back to normal. On the other visits, you can deal with the patient lying on his back in opposite limb inflections. Or as I do, I put it on the table and at the very beginning of the session, test if it's strong. If it's strong, I have him seat. And then I'm going to take the body point and test the body point and see where to start. That's all it takes. It's just communicating with the body to find out where to start and what to do and when to stop. When to stop is the most important thing. When I was in my last days at Palmer College, I went to follow a chiropractor the whole day. And at the end of the day, we have seen probably 40, 45 patients. He said, "What did you learn today?" I said, "Well, many things about techniques." He said, "You missed the whole point." He said, "The most important thing to know is when not to adjust and when to stop. If not, you're creating confusion to the body and your body is off." So this is why in TBM, you're using the high thymus, which is excellent. And Reese, Dr. Reese, that created STO, got the test of the hand of the horizontal plane on the skull, and he would test the muscle. And if it's weak, it's done for what you're doing for the session. Now MED goes a little bit further. You test this, it's weak, then you put here, you test again. If it's weak, then you have to stop for the day. If it's strong a second time, even if it were weak the first time, but strong the second time, you have to keep on. But then you're going to have to deal with something totally different from what you were dealing first. Okay. Any question? Because I'm talking, but I am boring you.
So about this test, it has the same meaning of the high thymus, means this is enough for your nervous system right now.
Yeah.
You need to leave it alone so it can integrate it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
And when not to adjust?
It's when you do the high thymus, you know what to do. Or you can ask the body. I mean, Ted Morter was using the feet. He was talking to the body through the feet. Short leg, long leg, having the answer. But you can test a muscle. Test a muscle, it's strong. Should I adjust? No, leave it. Okay.
That would be sending the patient home.
Remember, you're communicating with the body with not with the patient. You're communicating with the intelligence of the body, which is so different. Has nothing to do with the patient. The patient doesn't know anything about his condition. He knows what the MD or the orthopedist has said, but doesn't know about the condition, and of course he doesn't know where to touch to feel better and to get rid of the interferences. You have to. I can show you the points for the system, the different system in the body. Now we were talking about the structural thing. Then it's when you just go to the upper trapezius bilaterally and you test the muscle. If it's weak, you know you're in the structural aspect. Why is it that? Because the upper trapezius has a double innervation from the cervical and from the cranium. Okay? Then you have the neurological system, which is K27 bilateral. And K27 bilateral because it's the main thing that in applied kinesiology and also in Carl Ferreri was about the neuroorganization and the switch of the patient. You have as well the holographic system. If you look at your skull and you look at the temporal bones and the parietal bones, and mainly the temporal bones, it's just like parabolic antennas. They are receivers and they're emitting. So you go and tap this way here, and you will get the holographic thing. This is where you're going to work on, you can work on organs that have been removed. You can work on certain vertebrae if you use the Semirov technique. He was using the holographic part of the body. He would split the spinous process and the lamina or the mammillary process to adjust. Or in applied kinesiology, you have holographic subluxation that you're going to deal with the spinous process and the mammillary process or the lamina. You can deal when you find holographic, you go to the universal jaw, which is very important to deal with, because universal jaw is going to weaken all the muscles from the diaphragm down to your foot. And it's going to involve all the sphincters. It may involve as well the muscles of the uterus. It may involve as well the muscles of your arteries. So that's a very important thing. When you find universal intelligence, fix it. That's that for holographic thing. You have the point here on GB20, which is the posterior fontanelle, which is for acupuncture. This what they call the 1000 C's point. It's supposed to enter, the energy is supposed to enter here. That's their way of looking at it. I'm not sure this is exactly what's happening in the body, but this is what they're using. So it's the main point. So when you tap that and you get a muscle that is weakening, you know you have to work in the acupuncture meridians. Scar tissue can stop a meridian. So you have to work with the scar tissue and work with it. And it's good, you can use the IRT, injury recall technique, that we were talking before. Now you have the electromagnetic, which is totally different from the meridian. It's this way here. Your hand reversed on the forehead and the sagittal suture. Personally, I don't use it very much. Pete was using it a lot because of the cell phones and everything, and that I believe that if your physiology is well balanced, those frequencies don't have much effect onto you, or very little, because your body can adapt and correct the whole thing. But sometimes you find it, especially you will find it on patients that have a reversed energy, on oncological patients that are under chemotherapy or radiation. They're very weak. The energy is running backward. Energy running backward is very important too for psoriasis. Psoriasis, Victor Frank used to say that it's the meridian of the kidney that is running backward. So when you find that, you can check your kidneys and you can check your meridian for kidneys and check if they're running well. You go from K1 to K27, you go up, test the muscle, or you go from K27 to K1 and you run the muscle. And to fix it, it's K7. K7 or K5? No, K7. You go to K7 and you tap it 100 times, or 90 times. Then you go to here, the thymus. The thymus is not chemical, it's physiological, and it's immune. Like the gorilla that is there, goes onto the thymus, and then if you bang it, you're going to deal with mainly the physiology and the immune system. And then you go to SP21 and K27 right here. Okay. And this is pure chemistry. Pure chemistry, why? Because you can change the values of a blood analysis if you challenge those 2 points for 5 minutes. You can change the values. You can take a blood test, have the values, check those things, okay, stimulate those 2 points for 5 minutes and take another blood test and the values are totally different. So this is the main points that you're having and you can deal with. And they're telling you where to work and what to do. Then it all depends on the technique you're using. If you're dealing with chemistry and physiology, so far the one that is working the best is TBM, and I would say TBM, and I would say MED from Richard Bartlett. There are two techniques that are working perfectly for chemistry and physiology. Now, if we're talking about physiology, which is the most important thing for the moment, because everybody is weakening, everybody got low back pain, everybody has shoulder pain, everybody has headache, they don't sleep well, they have neck pain, they have all kinds of things they don't digest, they have bloating, they have some got diarrhea or things like this, and it's just because the body is in survival mode. And all you have to do is follow what the body is telling you to fix all those interferences and follow that. That's the only way you can help the body get out of the survival mode. And you will be surprised because most of the low back you will encounter in those days are physiological. What MED is telling, and I think it's very important, it's very interesting. If you got a category 2, and 90% of the category 2 for men should be a PI on the left and not a PI on the right. That's, the body is so confused in its physiology of adaptation that it will switch, and you will find a short leg on the right and you will find a right PI. But if you unswitch the body, you will find a left PI. And the left PI for men has to do with stomach, digestion, heart, psoas, pancreas, insulin, enzymes. Those are the things that the men are doing cardiac arrest more than women. Is it true? Okay. Some women are doing it now because they want to live like a man. And so they're having such a physiology of stress that they reach the point of having cardiac conditions, stomach conditions, blah, 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 and they end up having a cardiac attack. Women, by its nature, identity in nature, is creating. So it's the survival of the human species. So it's not the heart that is prevalent. It's the uterus and the ovaries and all the hormonal systems. So you're going to deal with liver, you're going to deal with hormonal system, uterus, and ovaries. Why liver? Well, because most of the hormones are going through the liver to be matured. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Questions?
Yes, Brice. You said 90% of the GATU immense are right PI or should be right PI after the switching.
For men, should be PI on the left.
It should be. Okay.
You may have the guy that fell onto the pelvic, okay, and got a PI on the right. Okay. That's not necessarily that every patient that has a PI on the right needs to be on switch to go to the left. But if you check the patient first and he has this test right here positive, you get a big possibility that this guy got a PI on the left. PI on the left is going to involve the psoas, going to involve the diaphragm. The diaphragm is going to involve the heart, the stomach. The diaphragm is going to block also the blood vessels going back to the heart. So that's quite important. Okay. And when you get a stress patient, one thing, this is why you need to know also soft techniques. Because when you got a stressed guy, and you're putting the guy on the side posture and you're going to bang him in the low back, you're going to put himself into an aggression and into a defense mechanism. So he's going to get even more stressed because his body, the body is under aggression. That's an important thing. And when you have a stressed patient, do not deal with the dorsals. Because when you're dealing with the dorsals, you're going to have a release of epinephrine, dopamine, and the guy's going to get high, but he's not going to get better. Because most of the people you're dealing with when they're under stress are sympathetic dominant, and you need to work mainly on the parasympathetic. And if you look at, you go to take a category 2, you're going to work on the pelvic, you're going to work on the atlas, you're going to work on the occiput, you're going to work on C2, C3 because it's so important for the diaphragm. And the
Merci.
Yes? You have a question?
No, I think it was a mistake.
Okay. And so this is the most important thing. The same thing when you're in category 1. It's a craniosacral. So you're going to work on the cerebrospinal fluid, fluidity, and the rapport between the boot of the sacrum with the sphenobasilar. It's a central mechanism. The category 2 is a lateral mechanism. Correct? Okay. You get a temporal bone, you get and you get a a pelvic bone. But the category 1 is a boot. And when you're dealing in the occipital fibers in CMRT, you're not going to bang the vertebra. You're going to deal with the main interference of the sympathetic body with the organ. It doesn't mean that the organ needs to be shoot down or shoot up. It's just the organ is not in harmony with the rest of the body. So when you're doing occipital fibers and you're dealing with that vertebra, you're not correcting the vertebra itself, but you're dealing with the organ. Yes? And if you look at a category 3 and the disc problem, which is, it's called category 3 because it's the last one to come up. It's a non-adaptation, it's the fruit. It's a non-adaptation to the pelvic torsion that you got in category 2. The most susceptible you're going to find is L4, L5, because it's the first vertebrae that is out of the rim of the pelvic area. Any question? I know it's a bit boring what I'm saying because no question?
Do you?
Any comment more than question, maybe?
No, that's a sort of information.
I have a question, Brice. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can I ask the question?
Yes.
So you said men should have a left PI, but left PI would mean that the left sartorius should be normally, if they're not stressed. That means that the left sartorius should be weak, which goes with the right cortex, which is more feminine, creative. So can you comment on that a bit?
No, repeat the question because I couldn't hear it all.
I'll try without it. No, I'm on the train, so I shouldn't. But what I mean is left PI means left sartorius weak, right?
Yeah.
And the left sartorius in the cortex is on the right side.
Yeah.
Which is more the feminine, creative cortex.
No,
So
the feminine side is on the left side.
the feminine is on the left.
Yeah.
I got it wrong then.
And only if the guy is under stress. If the guy is not under stress, he can be left-handed and he got a left PI.
Okay. Because in practice, I see normally many right PIs with right short leg. So I wonder what's
Right PI.
am I
Okay, one thing. A short leg, it doesn't mean really something if you don't do the dairy field. Okay? Ask your patient always if he's left-handed or right-handed. It's very important too, because if you find a left PI and the guy is left-handed, it's normal. Okay?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Just I find many right-handed people with the right short leg, which becomes even, and a right PI, at least upon palpation and upon challenges.
Yes, and you will find all the components of the category 2 on the right side. But if your guy is under stress, he's switched on the at the level of the whole organization of survival. So when you unswitch that, the guy and the short leg will be on the left side after that. And you can deal with it. But do not adjust on the side posture. You can use blocks. You can use, I would recommend to adjust the left PI in a standing position with an activator. Okay? And you will find the left atlas.
Thank you.
You will find the left atlas as well, okay? And the C4 as well. All the components that were on the right side will switch to the left side. The most important thing for the moment is, and there's something more. We were talking with Jean-Pierre about it last night. we're going to have a big, 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 huge problem within the next few months with all the people that are vaccinated. You have a high risk of thrombosis. So do not go and jerk the neck, because you don't know if the guy is having a thrombosis ready to go. So you don't want a guy to have his eyes way back up and the mouth open on your table. I told Jean-Pierre yesterday night, I said, I am not adjusting anymore. I am using soft techniques, because I don't know what's going to happen. I let the body work. I let the body auto-regulation, because the body has this intelligence, and even there's a thrombosis, the adaptation to your correction of the interference will be as it should be. We are going to live a very critical moment because of these vaccines.
So Brice, because now people more often get vaccinated. So with this vaccine, you wouldn't adjust cervical structurally, right?
Absolutely not.
Too risky.
Yeah. I'm not touching any cervical physically or gun-stat. And I used to be a gun-stater. So I know how to adjust in the cervical chair down to T3, but I wouldn't do it anymore. I saw many patients within the last 2 months with the vaccination having different types of pain they never had before. And the only way is I try to find out a protocol for the vaccine, and I was on the video call with Richard Bartlett, I think 3 weeks ago. We spent 45 minutes together, and he looked at it on its own, and so we exchanged our point of view and our approach, and I took some of his approach, and but we agreed on the fact that normally if you have a patient with the medication and you do TBM or you do MED, you're going to find one organ, one body point to fix it. With those vaccines that are not vaccines at all, they are not vaccines. They're therapy, genetic therapy, but they're not vaccines. You're going to find at least 7, 8, 9 combinations. You will find thymus, you will find brain, you will find limbic system, you will go to pancreas, you will go, I mean, it's amazing. I've had a patient yesterday, I haven't seen her for 3 months. She got vaccinated at the mid-April. She said, Doc, after one week, I got hemorrhoids. I got paresthesia. I got pain everywhere. I didn't understand. So I worked on her on the pseudo protocol that I've been writing with the help of Richard Bartlett, thanks God. And all of a sudden, the whole thing disappeared. But I don't know next time when I see her if it's not coming back. You see, the problem is we don't know what's in those shots.
You don't know if it's coming back because of the genetic component of the vaccine.
We don't even know what's in it, because there's a guy in Italy said that if you put a magnet where they got the shot and you leave the magnet here, you will get after a few days like a pouch right here. And you need to go to your surgeon to open it, because this is all the metal things that are contained in the vaccine that are absorbed by the magnet. So I don't know what they put in it. You know, it's not working as a vaccine. If you take the Sputnik, the Russian one, it's 2 shots. The first shot is adenovirus, which is normally all the flus. So it's awakening the T cells and the B cells. So the body has already identified the enemy and has created a defense and a memory. So it's the immune system is under alert. So after 2 weeks or three weeks, they inject the SARS virus. And then the body is ready. The T cells are here. The B cells are here. They're taking the guy and they're just killing the guy. But in the same token, they're creating memory. And that memory can last for 20 years or 30 years. That's a real vaccine. This one, at the beginning, you got one shot. Now they got two shots. Now they're talking about 3 shots. And they're talking about doing every 6 months. What is the calendar? What is the agenda they have? I'm really scared, to be honest. I don't know where we're going to.
Have you find any changes in the aura, like in the fields of patients?
Honestly, I haven't looked at it. When I'm dealing with the patient, especially when I work on in certain things, I'm referring to the feet, and I'm looking at the change of the aura of the feet, and I still have it. So, but I don't know if those patients got vaccinated, because not all of them are telling me they've been vaccinated. Okay, so I wouldn't be able to tell you and to answer your question. But it's a good question, because I'm going to look at it now. Any other comments?
Well, I got 2 questions in relation with SOT and BEST.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a correlation between the 3 levels of BEST and the 3 categories of SOT?
Well, it all depends to which BEST you're referring to.
The BEST from Ted Morter, not the one.
No, the third one is pure emotional. Okay. The third one in SOT is pure mechanical. That's the disc.
Yeah, no, true.
Okay. I would say that probably the first BEST, the first level of BEST, as Ted Morter taught it, is probably reorganizing sympathetic and parasympathetic, and having a better conduction of information. The level 2 is a very powerful thing, because it's dealing with the neurological organization, and that's extremely powerful. But the 3 is pure emotional. To be honest, I've been practicing the 3 for many years, and then I went into TBM and NET, and I found it better to get patients. But then I realized that the emotional aspect was much better dealt with matrix energetics, and as I said, with tail-wagging invasion. Because if you do what I teach in TBM, do things here and then go there and there, you get rid of 90% of all the thoughts that the patient has had. And then again, it's more working on the physiology and rebalancing the physiology of a patient, taking the patient from a linear thing back to a holographic thing. Then it's not going to have any, the thoughts won't have that effect onto the body, because the more you correct the interferences in the body, the more the body becomes holographic and is more susceptible to correct itself. Disease comes when the body cannot correct itself. That's the thing. And if you look at the vaccine, I believe that it's probably killing the holographic aspect of the body, having an effect onto the DNA, which is purely holographic. DNA is holographic and fractal. But they're going to change with this mRNA onto the DNA, and they're going to change the whole thing. And there's no technique for the moment to change that. We had Peter Garayev in Russia till last November. And very strange. Peter Garayev was supposed to be a nominee to the Nobel Prize of Medicine in 2021. And out of the blue, he died in November 2020. That's strange.
Who was him, Brice?
And
I don't know about him.
Peter Garayev was a genius in Russia. He was the first one to register the sound of the DNA. If you have seen Star Trek and the Borg, it's the same noise. But he did an experiment in MIT, Boston in 2001, where he took a rat that got a pancreatic tumor and actually diabetes and everything. He registered the sound of the cells of the pancreatic cells that were sick. And then he took a newborn rat, pick up the cells of the pancreas of that newborn rat, register the sound of the cells that are fresh and perfectly functioning, and he sent that sound back to the cells, the pancreatic cells of the sick rat. In 21 days, the tumor disappeared and the diabetes disappeared. If you look at the website, if you look at Peter Garayev, Garaiev, Peter Garayev, and you will see the program that he had for autoimmune disease, cancer, multiple sclerosis, whatever. He said in 40 days to 50 days, he could get rid of any oncological pathology. And the most difficult for him was people that were with multiple sclerosis that were already in a wheelchair. It took them 80 days to recover. Because he was dealing with the DNA. It's just like he was saying that everything in the DNA is just like words or sentences, phrases. And the DNA could become dyslexic. So he had to introduce again the right message, the right wording in the DNA. And the DNA would correct itself. And the cells would reproduce themselves not as sick, but as healthy. And that's very strange that he died in November when they were introducing on the market those pseudo vaccines affecting the DNA. When you deal with the vaccine on patients, you always find DNA, this point right here. And you find brain. It's just like if the brain were fried.
The sound of the DNA is a frequency.
Is it fragrant?
Yeah, it's a frequency, or it's like moving.
Well, it's a frequency because everything is sound in the universe.
So if we can find frequencies for each organs and just like record those frequencies, can we just like use them?
This is what they do in biotechnology. I have a friend of mine who's doing biotechnology from that German school. And it's quite amazing what they can do. Last year, I got bronchitis. I went to see him at 11 o'clock in the morning. At 2 o'clock, my bronchitis was gone. That's quite amazing. Yeah. They're working mainly on frequencies. And there's, I think in Portugal, they have 17 clinics working like this. Biophysiology, it's really pretty impressive. And they have special machines. They read everything. You got machines to read your chakras. You got machines to read your energy. You have at the beginning of the session, you have a total scan of your body, organ per organ. Then when they find the organ, they can go down deep down to DNA and the chromosome, and they affect that. It's quite amazing. It's really funny. I go there once every 2 or 3 weeks. Session lasts an hour. It's fun.
Brice, one question
Yep.
about the what you said about the cells having their own frequency, right? The organs and all the research Peter David have done on this. So what's what is the role of the nervous system on this? Is the nervous system the one getting the vibration into the cells? Or
No.
it's through the DNA, right? That's the own DNA. Okay, so what's the role of the nervous system into this?
It's mainly sympathetic, parasympathetic.
Okay, when to activate and deactivate certain functions. That's
your nervous system will affect your physiology. But the cells are under the control of the whole body anyway, is under the control of the organization of the harmony of the electrons, biophotons, and DNA with the field. That's all. You may, when you work as a chiropractor, you're gonna deal with the nervous system. And when you go into different technique, you can work on the organ itself, as in CMRT or TBM or MED, but you're still working on the physiology. So maybe the physiology is affecting the cells, and maybe the cells itself is receiving a certain message and is modifying the reading of the wording, but that we don't know. But you see miracles in your office and you don't understand why. And you don't want to understand why, because the part of the mystery is what makes you believe in what you're doing. The moment you understand everything and the moment you know everything, then you start being in control of what you're doing. And then you're away from universal intelligence and you go into your left brain and your ego. And this is where you make the mistakes. Very few guys could really influence an organ in our profession. Viktor Frankl was one of them. He would say, I'm going to fix that. And he would fix it. But at our level, I prefer to speak about interferences and trying to reharmonize the body within itself and with the field.
So one question about this, a more broad question actually, because we speak about many techniques, right? And any techniques has this major impact on certain system and everything, right? But when we come back to our principal philosophy of innate intelligence regulating the whole body and healing the body, and innate intelligence expressing itself through the nervous system, this is why we are adjusting the spine to clear the interferences. Why, in this case, sometimes adjusting the spine and getting rid of the interferences so innate can do its job is not enough. We need to get also technique to maybe work on more specific systems. You know what I mean? Innate wouldn't be able to deal with that.
Well, you have to understand one thing is that when chiropractic was born, there was not such an external interference, and people would think differently. The physiology of survival was not as high as it is for the last 20 years, 30 years. So you could have an adjustment and have a total change. When I first started, I was not seeing any young guy with a sciatica. No, I find many, many, many. And if you go to the physiology and you understand that the physiology is creating the change, it's a rapport between function and structure. The more you get into the survival mode, the more the organ will send message, and the muscles that are related to the organs will change the dynamic of the articulation. And if the articulation is changed in its dynamics, then as man, as a quadruped, it's going to affect the other limb, the opposite one. And so it's going to change the way of walking. And if you go back to the work with Peter Crisera on the gait and the piezoelectrical effect of the gait between the two deeper meninges, then it's changing the whole thing. And it's the battery is not nourished as it should be because there's an interference. And so it's not only mechanical, and if you look at even back in SOT or in STO or in applied kinesiology, the category 1 is physiological, purely physiological. That's the first one. Then the second one is a mechanical demonstration of a physiological stress. Then at the end, the body cannot adapt to this physiological stress and goes into a mechanical aspect as a category 3 and this problem. This is why in the last 20 years, in the last 30 years, when you look at the impact of technique like TBM, of matrix energetics, or network, the change in the patient's physiology. As I said before, you can be passionate with toggle recall and doing only toggle recall in your office, and you will do the right job, but you will attract the patients that are responding to what you're doing. And the more you study, the more complicated the case you will receive. We're here to help people. We are not here to heal people because we're not healing anybody. It's the body that heals itself. But so the body can heal itself, you have to follow what the body is telling you what to do, so it can readjust and recreate a physiology and go back to holographic aspect, far away from the linear aspect that created the disease and the weakness of the body who could not adapt anymore. That is why when you do a priority system, you're following what the body is telling you to do because it needs that. If you don't have a priority system, you're going to go into your bookshelf, into your left brain, but not necessarily you will find the right answer. So the more tools you have to communicate with the body and not with the patient. The communication with the patient is to explain what we do as a chiropractor, our philosophy, and what you've done to them at the end of the session so they can understand. But during the session, you have a conversation with the body, with the intelligence of the body. And you will be amazed what you will find, because you may think that you can deal with this, but at the end it's not. It's a whole different world. I've seen people having a hip problem And I was dealing with the wrist, and adjusting the wrist, I changed the conduction of the meridians, of 6 meridian. So it changed the tonicity and the muscular response of the gluteus medius, the adductors, and the piriformis. And so the hip became stable. This is why we have the priority system. Because Ted Morter used to say that we can be smart, but we'll never be as smart as the body is. So you may pretend to be good, but in front of the power of innate intelligence and universal intelligence, we are nothing. So we'd better listen to that force that is creating and creating and balancing and harmonizing the nature. Because what you see in the seasons outside is the same thing in your body. But in your body, the interference comes from how you live, how you look at the world, how you look at your life. This is creating a physiology. And if you keep on working and looking at it in a negative way, or with anxiety, or with fear, or with anger, then you're going to the dark side. And you're going always more linear. Your body is in defense because it needs to survive. So the body will say, okay, I need to protect myself. So I'm going to protect my heart and my brain. And all of a sudden your stomach aches. And all of a sudden you get bloating. And all of a sudden your prostate is inflamed and you don't understand why. Because anyway, you don't need it. The body says, I don't need it for the moment. I need to survive. I need to get glucose to my brain and to my heart. Because without any one of the two, I'm dead. This is what we're living now. If we're conscious of this, our job is very beautiful. Because we are every day, 10, 11 hours a day, we are talking, I could say, to God. Because there's no difference between universal intelligence or God or whatever you may for, or the force, as you want it in Star Wars, but that's the same thing. That's all it is. You know, the difference between an animal and a man and a human being is that the animal can be in danger, but once the danger is past, it goes back to a normal physiology. He has a memory that can identify the danger, so he stays away from the danger. But his physiology will be perfect. The man keeps in memory, analyzed what happened, and give an interpretation to what happened. And this interpretation is following every day of his life. So he's living always in an answering to the danger, because his thoughts are the danger. In English, they say fear stands for false evidence appearing real. That's exactly that. When you have your thoughts that are of anxiety or fear or doubts, whatever, ask yourself if it's useful. It's done like in NLP. When you ask yourself if your thoughts are useful, you already have an emotional detachment from what you're thinking. You're not anymore in the movie, you're watching the movie. It's very different. And if you keep on asking yourself if it's useful, one day you start not thinking this way. And one day, as Krishnamurti, this Indian philosopher, he said, you need to observe without interpreting, without judging. And when you observe without judging, at one point, observing, you will become the observed. You will be one with the thing that you're observing. And so you'll get more information from what you're observing, because it will come from that, because you will become what is observed. And there's no judgment anymore. We are in a period of humanity where we need to go back to the knowledge of those very wise men. That's very important. Everything you see today on TV is a propaganda of fear. They want you to be afraid, so they can give you the solution. And you've been living so much in fear that you accept their solution. That's what they've been doing for a year and a half. They changed the figures of the death of dead people. They changed the figures of people that were in hospital. They changed the figures of people that got a positive test. We know now, with the lawyer Fulmish, like 97% of the positive tests were false positive. Why? Because they were doing the PCR test up to 45 cycles. When you do it up to 24, the only thing you find is residue of a particle of DNA of something. It is not a tool to diagnose. It is an instrument of laboratory to find if there is anything present in what you've been taken. But when you go to one cycle to 24, when you reach around 24, what you find is very weak. But when you go beyond 30 cycles, everything you find is dead. So if you meet a dog that is dead on the street, it's not going to never bite you. 97% of the patients that were diagnosed as positive were false positive. But they created such an atmosphere, such a condition, that they scared people. And now people are willing to start with this, then you can move, you can go there, you can go there, you cannot travel, you can do. Now we have the solution. We give you the vaccine so you can travel, so you can go out. But you need a pass so you can live normally. It's terrible.
But it's crazy how people are willing for it, because I guess as many of us, we had many discussions with friends and so on, and they just waiting the vaccine to be able to travel again, to get their rights again. And
Yeah.
This is crazy how we arrived until this.
But this is like, it's a propaganda just like Stalin was doing and the Nazi were doing. Installing fear in the daily life of people. So when they receive a solution, they accept it. That's all it takes. It's so simple. It's a brainwashing. Any other question?
Yes, if you can later on maybe pass to Axel the YouTube link you were speaking about the IRT at the beginning of the session. Do you remember you were speaking about the YouTube link?
Of Sheldon Deal.
Sheldon.
Sheldon.
Sheldon. S-H-E-L-D-O-N. Deal. D-E-A-L. Sheldon Deal. He's a great chiropractor, very, very, very good in applied kinesiology. And he has a book that is so interesting, costs $100, perfect. It's a nuts in the shell. It's all gimmicks that he has, but it's very, very interesting. Yeah. I hope I didn't bore you.
It's amazing. No, it's just so much information from the first visit, just to catch up and yeah. So are you planning to do one soon next year or something like that?
We were talking at the clinic late yesterday at lunch. We are willing to organize a big seminar in Como, October or November, where we're going to do the first visit and the priority system, and hands-on and everything. So that's going to be very, it's going to be nice. And we'll bring philosophy, we'll bring things, we'll have fun, and because I know it's just an introduction that I gave to you tonight. So maybe you're a bit disappointed by the information you received, but if we can do it on stage, it's much better, that's for sure. Okay, yeah. So no more questions? I have time, so.
Yes, but it's just a simple question. You were speaking sooner about soles, and if you are testing a patient with and without soles, is it better to put soles within the shoes or just simply on the floor?
Both. Doesn't
Okay.
matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. Very often, the soles are not necessary because unless you got a anatomical flat foot, but most of the problem in the foot are due to past trauma, and mainly it can be due to meridians that are creating weakness in the muscles, or just muscles that are weak because of a C5 that is creating a weakness of the popliteus bilaterally. And when the patient is standing, it puts a charge on the relationship between the fibula and the tibia, which is stretching the nerve, a deep peroneal nerve that is innervating the flexors of the foot and the anterior tibialis. And so the anterior tibialis is supposed to be up to work for 75% of the stride. Okay, when you do a stride, okay, your foot is up for 75%. Okay, but if you get a weakness of those flexors of the anterior tibialis, automatically the antagonist will be stronger, too strong. Okay, so it's going to change the physiology of your of the foot dynamic. And if you look at it, then it's going to change the posture, because then you're going to have a lean forward and your head will go forward. So you have, before, you know, it's just like a bite, okay? It's very similar. A bite and the plantars are about the same thing. You got to be sure, a bite, if the person has lacking teeth or whatever, is necessary, or you can use a bite because the person has ruined all the enamels and there's no more cuspids in the teeth. So you need to heighten that. But very, if you give a bite just when there is a muscular imbalance, try to work first on the muscular imbalance. Try to understand why we're having a muscular imbalance here. This is why the Meersseman test between ascending and descending is very important. Because if you have an ascending, it's useless putting that here. Just like if you got something that is coming from C5, or you got an occiput that is creating a weakness, a bilateral weakness of your psoas muscle, then your feet won't be 15 degrees outward. They will be in. Your knee will be in. So the vault of your foot will go down. So you're lacking water and your psoas is weak. you have a bladder infection, your anterior tibialis is weak. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's very important before using prosthesis of that case, of that kind, it's very important to understand if there is anything to do to change the physiology of the articulation and the feet in itself and the gait. You know, orthopedists will give planters because they don't have that knowledge. They have flat feet. They say, okay, it's flat feet. We'll put the planters, but don't understand the whole process of having flat feet. Okay, they give very often when you have a short leg and you got 15 millimeters of difference between the right leg and left leg, they will put a heel lift of 15 millimeters. It's going to destroy the spine. First of all, you got a short leg, find out if it's physiological or anatomical. Correct what you have to do and what the body is telling you what to do. Then it's out of 15. You got less than 6 or 6, you don't need to have a heel lift because up to 6 millimeters, the body is adapting. If you go way beyond, and if you go to 8 or 10, then you're going to give half of the difference as a lift. If it's an 8, you give a 4. If it's a 10, you give a 5. But you're not going to give 10. Orthopedists are doing the big mistake like this. And so the patient comes and he's in pain everywhere, up to the neck, up to the shoulder. You know, we have more knowledge than them because they're working on the site of pain. We do not work on the site of pain. We work not on the condition. We work on the interferences. It's very different. We work on the patterns that are interfering with the patient. You got a patient with a headache. Okay, could be cervical. It could be something else. Check the sugar, check protein, check whatever it is. The body will tell you where to work anyway. You always have to be like a kid. When you were a child, very young, and you were asking something to your parents, they would give you an answer and you would say, why? 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 You have to ask the body why. And it's going to show you the way. And it becomes fun and easy to work. And don't take the credit for the results you get, because it's the body that does it. You're just a door. You're not a doer. Remember that. But you're having fun being a doer. Have any question?
Yes, but it's more personal. I'm going to be graduating in the UK, but I would like to know what I can do if I want to work in Italy. If you know that or if you don't.
In the sense of practicality, or why would you like to work in Italy, first of all?
Depends where can have an offer. Como can be really great, but after like Milan, Rome.
It's not difficult. Write letters to the chiropractors in Italy.
Okay.
And visit some of them, follow them. You can come to Como, you can follow us for 1 day or 2. You will see how we practice. You'll have fun. You'll be more than welcome. No problem.
Can be really great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever
thank
you want. Just tell us, just give us a call, and we'll be happy to receive you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brice,
Yeah.
last one. What would be the main techniques you think we should first of all focus on?
Well, you know, it's I think that you need to know how to test muscles, and apply kinesiology is an excellent technique for that. And to understand the practicality of your anatomy that you've been studying. This is a must. You need to have an adjusting technique. To me, the best one is Gunstead. That's the most specific one. But as I said before, I'm not going to touch those people, my patients now for a while, waiting for what's going to happen.
About Gunstead, Brice, do you X-ray all your patients?
Well, most of them are with X-rays, and most of them are having MRI more than any X-rays. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not doing the neurocalorimeter. I'm not doing the motion palpation. We have the tools to understand where to work. Okay.
Okay.
Best is an excellent technique because it's a non-aggressive technique, having good results. If you listen to Patricia and Marc Jublin, network is an excellent technique. It's a world. Network is a world. Okay, has its own philosophy. If you enter, I believe, because I was listening to them the whole video, and it's very specific. It's a beautiful island, and they have their philosophy, the concept, and it's working so well. Other technique, SOT for sure is the basis. If you want to understand the categories and the physiology, SOT and CMRT is STO is complicated. If you do a good SOT, a good applied kinesiology, Thompson technique to adjust as well on the pelvic and sacrum is good. NET, neuroemotional, NOT, new organization technique with Carl Ferreri. It's hard for me to say because I've been practicing for so many years TBM and applied kinesiology and SOT and all those techniques put together. And for the last 13 years, I've been practicing a lot of matrix energetics, and now I'm into matrix energetics and MED. And I'm doing MED using matrix energetic to go fast and work on it. But it's an evolution. So I think you have to go to the technique you resonate with. It's not, I would say the two key techniques are SOT and applied kinesiology to start with.
For you, who are the best teachers actually for AK and SOT?
SOT, I'm not able to answer that. I guess you have at the BCC some information for the best seminars in SOT, right? I retain that the best instructor in applied kinesiology is David Leaf. As I said before, is a pure product of the concept that George Goodheart put into applied kinesiology. And the knowledge that Dave has is just huge, amazing. I remember we were in Monaco and in Munich. We were for applied kinesiology international seminar, and we've been to the restaurant together, and then we went at the bar, and I think we ended up at 4 o'clock in the morning drinking beer and observing people walking. And our game was to find out what was the muscle that was weak and was creating this, and the vertebra that was stuck until 4 o'clock in the morning. The knowledge of this guy is just amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, it's good. You learn a lot from him. That's for sure. Yeah.
Brice, what do you think about TRT?
About what?
Torque release technique.
Honestly, I don't know what the technique is.
Oh, it's I think Meersseman use it. it's a kind of activator they have with the torque that you do on Atlas to unlock the meninges as well. Okay, if you never heard about it, never mind.
First of all, you have to understand why the torque is here. And as I said at the very beginning, if you work in the gate and you find a dual torque, not necessarily the torque has a mechanical origin. It's you know, it's those techniques are working on the top of the tip of the iceberg, on the evidence that you see, but not on the real iceberg that is under the water. I mean, it's much better to work with the iceberg that says 90% of the iceberg is under the water. Because if you're melting this iceberg under the water, the tip of the iceberg is sinking. As long as you work on the tip of the iceberg, the 90% underneath are still there. This is why I'm emphasizing, and this is why I was willing to talk about the priority system in the first visit, in order to work on the iceberg under the water, not on the tip.
About the first visit, Brice, you call it the first visit because this is your analysis on the first visit where the patient comes, and then you find your priorities, right? And
Yeah.
but is it something, an assessment you did like on the first visit, and then you can adjust whatever you want because you already fixed the priorities? This is the
No.
idea behind? No.
Every visit, I'm going back to my priority system. The first thing I do, my patients are used to go to the plumb line. I have a certain idea of what's happening on the structural level, but then I'm always asking the body where to work. So I'm always using the points I referred to and testing the muscle. I never treat a patient without the priority system, never. Even if it's coming just for a foot or an ankle, I will go for the priority system. Because he had a sprained ankle, he fell. Why did he fail? Why did he fall? Was it a weakness in the leg? Was it a weakness in the back that created that wrong step that created the sprained ankle? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's just plain. It's just, you need to communicate with the body. So it's vital to get that information.
I'm really looking forward to learn it.
Well, it's fun because it's easy. Once you understand that you're communicating, it's a conversation with the body. Once you understand that, I mean, you let the information come into you. And it becomes vital to your practice to do that, because you know you're going to work faster, you're going to get better changes in the patient's body, and you're going to make this person happy. It's so simple.
Can I ask you about why we are doing the double crown for the first part in the protocol? No, the double crown on the top of the skull.
This and that is what Ted Morter introduced in BEST. Sensory motor.
Okay.
So when you do that, you're covering the tube. That's all. So you know that the information that you put in, and it's registered and it's already working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh yes, about the CAT 4 as well in CBN. Are you putting every patient in CAT 4 before they leave the table?
I used to. I can go with metrics and do the same thing, and it takes 2 seconds. But if you do only TBM, yes, you have to do the CAT4. That's very important. You know, we had a patient once. It was not my patient. It was a friend of mine who got that patient. She was a lady who got was diagnosed as a cancer of the stomach, a cancer of the pancreas, and she called me so we could deal together on that patient. And the session in TBM lasted an hour and a half. We had to do a lot of things, all the basics, go back there and then. Then we put that person on the CAT4, on the blocks. She remained 56 minutes. So the body had to assimilate everything, every modification that were brought to the body. And we saw her about a month later. Her skin was totally different. She was pissed because she took another MRI or a scanner, abdominal scanner, and she was tumor-free. There was no more tumor in the pancreas, no more tumor in the stomach. And they told her that they made a mistake in the very diagnosis, in the very first diagnosis, that she got only gastritis, because they couldn't believe the change.
And I guess she didn't say she wanted to see a chiropractor, right?
No, of course not. But who cares? It's not important. But you were asking me about the question about the category for it, and I took that example because
yes,
it's here for the rest of my life. 56 minutes on the blocks. That was quite amazing. But the result was beautiful. The body worked for 56 minutes to. So you have to let the body work. We could have stopped that. If we had stopped that after 30 seconds or 1 minute, forcing the muscles. I mean, this lady probably would have that, not any change in her physiology.
What do you think about the frequency of seeing patients? For example, here in Spain, I know the average frequency, right, is when you enter the clinic twice a week for 2 months, right? I mean, Gonstead was used to say we adjust too much, we over adjust, right? And we don't leave the time to the body to adapt to it. How would you define a good frequency for a patient? How would you know? Because it's more generic, right? You said twice a week, and you know what I mean?
It all the cases you have. If it's a chronic case, if you see him on Monday, why should you see him again on Thursday? If it's a chronic case. If you've seen on the patient that he needs dental cares, you're not going to treat him. Send him to the dentist first. If he needs to have glasses done, wait until the glasses are done. Now, if you got an acute case, if you're dealing in a priority system, you see the guy on Monday, you're going to see him again on Thursday. But by Thursday, the patient should be 70% better. Then you're going to see the guy next week, which should be another 20%. And if he's fine after 3 visits, I see the guy 2 or 3 weeks later. Then I'm asking for 1 month or 2 to come to be sure that things are okay, because I need to work not on the symptoms, but on harmonizing the body. And I'm asking my patient to come every seasonal change, every 3 months. For one good reason, because every season there's an organ that is weak. And so if the organ is weak, like for instance, for the moment, this liver. So liver, we're going to have shoulder problems because of the pectoralis, the rhomboid, and the triceps. We can have knee problem because of the meridian point for the liver, which is LV8, which is right inside of the knee. So I'm always saying to my patients for the seasonal changes. Because if you look at it, they've been asking me to write an article about that for the clinic, and it's going to be ready Sunday night. But I have to work on it tomorrow. You know, if you need to adjust the guy 10 times in a month, I don't think you're dealing with the problem. I don't think you're dealing with the interference. You're dealing with the tip of the iceberg. But the patterns are always here, and they're recreating the problem. And if you're working on the structural, when the priority is emotional or is chemical or physiological, you're going to bang that guy 20 times, 50 times. Max, you're going to get an inflammation because you've been adjusting too much. Or you can create a disc problem because you're stressing the body up to the point that the patient is not linear anymore. And you're adjusting, and you're giving shots. And the guy's taking shots of epinephrine and dopamine, and is high, but you don't fix it. You can ask the body. This is very often what I do. I'm asking the body when to see the patient. I'm going in matrix and I say, okay, days, weeks, okay, 1 to 3 weeks. Come back in 3 weeks. That's all. I'm asking always, except for the first 3 visits. I know that I have to see them this way. But after that, I'm asking the body what the body needs and what the field is deciding. You know, I think you will get more first visits, more new patients, if you do few visits, make them feel much better. They will be enthusiastic, they will speak about you, and they will refer a lot of people to you. But if you're squeezing the patient's wallet, they will be very cautious about sending a friend to you. It all depends how you see the thing. I'm always working with the philosophy. I'm always working with innate and the field. So I'm listening to them. I'm not listening to my wallet. I don't care. I know giving a good job, people will come. I mean, this week, I've been working Thursday, this morning, and tomorrow, and I got 9 new patients. And I looked at next week, I already got 10 new patients. It's because I like what I do. The practice has to be human. It's an exchange between 2 human beings. That person comes to you because he needs help. You're going to give the service. Jim Parker, you're too young to know Jim Parker. Jim Parker got the biggest seminar in the United States. He had 17 clinics in Texas. He was going from one clinic to Texas to another one with his private plane. And he would say, money is the byproduct of service rendered. That's the key point. The service you give, the quality of your work, the quality of your behavior with them. That's the most important. And to go back to what we said at the very beginning, dare to be yourself. Dare to play your own music. The unconscious of the patient will recognize it and accept it. Always dare. Never be afraid of being yourself and do what you feel like doing. If it's what you like really and you feel like doing, do it. You will do it with your heart, not with your brain. And it's going to be a huge effect onto the patient. all those masters that I've met, they were working with their heart. They were working with their faith, and they dared create a technique, and they dared doing their technique to people. You think like a guy like Richard Bartlett that came on stage and did this and people fell? You got to get guts to do that. You're in your office, you go and you take the guy, you do this, and the guy falls and he's unconscious for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then he stands up and says, wow, that was something. And it feels better. But Richard dared doing this. He was presenting something that was totally out of sight. Like that Morter, touching down, when everybody was adjusting. Like Bankrupt, with the feet, going there, touching, stimulating. Wow. They dared. That's the most important thing. That's what Viktor Frank taught me. He said, why don't you dare, Brice? And since that day, I always dared. You come to Como, you see me working, you're going to say this guy's crazy. But I'm having fun. I'm laughing with my patient. I'm saying the thing to change. I'm laughing. This morning, I got a lady, she's 91 years old. She came with her daughter, who's 65, and I treated her in MED and Matrix, 91. She accepts that. You know what? Because she knows and she feels that I love what I do, and I'm having fun doing it. And I do it not for my ego, not to satisfy my ego. I do it because I feel that this is the right thing for her. And that I fit to it. Any more questions?
Yeah, just a simple curiosity. Are you working only in Como or in different offices?
I used to work in Reggio Emilia, but I'm going to quit at the end of July. And I have an office also in Beirut, Lebanon, but I couldn't go to Lebanon for about 15 months now. So okay. As soon as I can, I'll go back to Beirut.
Okay.
So maybe, Brice, a last one. Would you like to share, if you could reach all students, an advice, anything? You already said that be yourself, dare to be yourself, feel the technique that is connected to your heart and practice it, enjoy it. Maybe for Jean-Paul Piantard, maybe a message, I don't know, anything you would like to say to if you could reach every student for the future.
What do you mean by that?
To maybe give this new generation a hope, an energy, a fire to take the flame again.
Well, I think that what we said tonight is enough, no? Or is there anything that I should say? Something more? I mean, daring being yourself and love what you do and be honest with yourself and not pretending to get the results, but let the body work and let the field working and innate intelligence. I think this is the most important thing, because when you behave this way and when you live this way and when you practice this way, there's no fear. There's no fear of failing. Is when you're working with your ego and you're addressing your work to get rid of the symptoms and the condition, then you get into the trap. of the fear of not succeeding. But by dealing with the body, asking the body where to work and what to do and when to stop, where is the fear? It doesn't exist. You're working with such an infinite potential, such an intelligence that you will never build up. We can beat all of us together, all our brains together. We won't even reach 1/1000th of it. That's the key. Do not treat the condition. Do not treat the disease. Deal with the patterns. So the body can reorganize itself and heal itself. In that case, it's easy. You cannot fail because you don't do. Put your ego aside. Don't let your ego get into your treating room. It's not a treating room anyway. It's a healing atmosphere. Because the field is there. It's already working. Everything you do, every thought you have when you're dealing with the patient is into the morphic field. And you're working with the morphic field of the technique you're using. And you're working with the morphic field of the masters who created the profession. So where can you fail? But if you want to be an asshole, to pretend to heal people, to know better than anybody, I do not intend to know better than anybody. I do not intend to be better than anybody. I don't care about the others, to be honest. I don't care if someone is better than me. I don't give a shit. I want to be better than who I am. I want to improve in my skills, but also here, as a human being, as an entity. That's my purpose. So what I'm today, I don't want to be the same tomorrow. I want to be an inch further in wisdom, in knowledge, in understanding, in reception and perception. I want to increase my perception of this infinite potential. I want to be more in harmony with it. I want to grow. So it has nothing to do with the others. It's just with myself. That's what you have to do when you practice. You know, I quit going to the meetings, professional meetings. You know why? Because I was sitting at dinner, at lunch, and everybody got a masturbation, intellectual masturbation of how they were good and they get results and things. Why? Why you need to pretend? Why you need to brag? There's nothing to brag. You don't do it. It's the body, it's the field, it's innate, it's universal intelligence. You got to be enthusiastic, but you have to be grateful to receive this information from the field so people can heal. That's it. Be grateful to be a chiropractor. Be grateful to grow up every day. Be grateful as a human being to reach a certain wisdom. Well, I'll never become a master of wisdom because I have my weaknesses. But I intend to be better 10 years from now. That's it. That's all it takes. You're in competition with yourself, not with any other. Always more. If you're an athlete, you always want to go further, 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 better, better, better. Well, if you're an artist, you want to go deeper into your creation, right? That's exactly what we're doing. We go deeper and deeper and deeper, and we learn, and our perception and consciousness is growing. So I can treat my patients that are living in Beirut, and I see them on video or not, and the results is the same as if they were on my table. Not because I'm doing it, but because I'm aware that distance doesn't exist, time doesn't exist. What we have is an illusion created by our mind. But if I can find the right information, and that information directly goes to the patient, so the body of the patient is reorganizing itself and feels better. I'm not doing anything. I'm just aware that it's everywhere. And if I'm here in Lugano and my patient's in Beirut, what else? It's working. That's what it takes.
I think Axel must be quite happy now.
I'm happy always. Okay. So maybe anyone have another question?
You're fed up, you're right. It was very nice talking to you. It was a very beautiful moment for me to share a few things with you and feel the enthusiasm you have for the profession. And I'm sure every one of you will succeed and get a big success in their profession and their career, really, because you're all beautiful.
Thank you very much, Brice.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. And hope to see you in October in Como for the first
Yes.
visit, if you
Yes.
guys doing the seminar.
Okay.
So,
Take good care. Bye.
You too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See you in October, November for the first visit.
Yeah.